Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is December the 3rd, 2018. And Michael is on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. So we have offered as part of his Team Kaizen group to host the call tonight. And the topic that we agreed on is really life is an inside job, and so is Nikan. So it's the inner work that we want to focus on tonight. And we're going to expect some audience participation from everybody, if that's okay. And the reason we were wanting to share this was because, let's just talk a little bit about the conversation we had before we pushed record. Cheryl, you were saying something really cool about why it's not easy.
Yeah, because I find we tend to get in our head and we're thinking it. Even when you're maybe doing your affirmations and whatnot, you're thinking what you want to affirm and stuff. So, sometimes can get really muddled unless you can just quiet your mind down and just almost be blank, come from a blank state, and then it, can come from there.
Absolutely. And you also, Suzanne, were saying something about the inner work. And what do you want to say to start us off?
I really think that when things are going well for me, I've started my day off on the right foot. And what does that mean? It's different for every person. But for me, it's about starting out with good thoughts, going through reading certain things that put my mind in a good state. I love listening to this one song and reading through my box of good intentions. So that's how I start my day. When I start that way, things just seem to flow better.
And what do you think that's about, Suzanne? Why do things go better when we take the time to center and, really feel the feeling that is the connection feeling to our goals, basically, but also to our mission?
I think it's because our vibration is at a much higher level. Mike's always talking about where that level is if the goal is way up here and we're down here, there's a big disconnect. But if we start out with this vibration of having what we're looking to achieve and feeling that feeling is really the key.
Okay. And why, just a question for everybody, why is that a difficult thing to sustain? Any ideas?
Just outside influence, like, other
Bingo. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Distractions, because we are so conditioned to be in the physical world, this three-dimensional reality. And is that where we create, was that the place we create from? No. We create from the higher self, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And it takes a lot of practice. I know I didn't grow up with meditation. I didn't grow up with, being in touch with the feeling I wanted to feel and that whole sense of I can create from energy. So for me, it's a new learning, which means it takes some retraining of my brain, retraining of my mind, and my habits. So one of the things that I am doing right now that is really, really helpful for me is I'm studying a man named Dr. Joe Dispenza. How many of you have heard of him? Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, the first book of his that I read, and I looked at the title and I went, what? How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself. Mm-hmm. I thought, what an interesting title. So I purchased the book and it came with 2 CDs. You can tell it's a little older book. And it's all about retraining the mind, because Joe has a very good grasp on quantum science. And, as Albert Einstein said, the field is the sole governing agent of matter. So, that we have in quantum physics, we have the wave and the particle, right? And they're always there. And lots of experiments have shown that when you focus on a thought, that collapses into a particle, which is our reality. We're all particle. And wave is where that meditation place takes us to, where we can be part of the creator of our lives, because matter cannot change matter. Well, you can, but it just takes a really long time. It's energy that changes matter. So just understanding that and learning from Joe what that even means from a scientific perspective has been really helpful. And then to do his meditations at least once or twice a day. My commitment is an hour minimum a day, doing a meditation, and then also beyond that reading more. And what he's got a lot of things on YouTube. He's got some of his meditations on YouTube, and he keeps refining his art, so his newer ones are not available on YouTube. They're ones that you need to purchase. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been taking, well, in 6 days, my friend and I binge learned a 9-week program of Joe Dispenza's. So worthwhile, because I know that from being a language teacher, that immersion is the way to learn, right? Even when I became a hypnotherapist, I didn't want to do one Saturday a month for 10 months. I did a complete 30-day, all-day program. And that's the way I learn. It may not be how other people learn, but that's been really, really helpful for me. And understanding the science behind it for me, because I have been taught to be a quote-unquote intellectual and do a lot of thinking. And that's what I got recognized for growing up. So now to understand the knowledge and then to apply that in the format that he has laid out is really, really helpful. So who has other things that they do or people they tap into to quiet the mind, to focus on the energy, so that we can bring energy into matter? Gary, you're muted. I'd love to hear from you.
I've started practicing some breathing techniques by Wim Hof. I'm not into the cold showers that he is, but his breathing techniques really do. I mean, some people say it's just hyperventilating, you know, and your mind does, or your brain does, kind of jump around when you get to that point. But it's also been proven to alkalize the blood. All kinds of health benefits that come from it. You learn how to expand the rib cage, and this is always done in a quiet setting with empty stomach, never when you're driving down the road, because you can pass out, or in a swimming pool. But you know, it really does seem to clear the mind. I don't know if it's that rush of oxygen from the breathing or what it is. But, and again, I've just started this a month or so ago. Not every day, but you know, whenever I get the chance. And again, I'm just learning all this. I'm just a country boy from Georgia, and all this, I laughed at it all when I started. So you never know what you can learn and what's just around the bend, an idea or a thought or a modality that can change your life. So I want to try them all to
Absolutely
see what happens.
And Gary, you know, in meditation too, the breath is the way to quiet the mind. For one thing, it also brings us present. When you're really focused on your breathing, you're in the present moment. And I think that for me anyway, I have not been trained to keep my mind still enough to be in the present moment. I'm easily distracted. I'm in the past, I'm in the future, I'm over here looking at the squirrel or whatever. So I find this really, really helpful as a discipline. And it is a discipline. It takes time, right, Gary? You can't just master it in one go.
Yeah, and your mind can't wander when you're getting dizzy from hyperventilating. You're pretty much in the moment. I guarantee it. He actually advocates holding your breath after this exercise until you reach the point where you're about to pass out, and timing it, and, you know, extending that time, working on making that time longer and longer. So, you know, you get right up against the consciousness there.
Exactly.
You know, which some people say is where great things start. So,
indeed. So who else has other practices that they follow, or just habits that they're creating that bring you into the present and connected to energy?
I'll just throw out two things quickly. Is I find that my vibration always goes up when I'm out in nature. So if I'm around, you know, I have a backyard with 12 acres, and if I just go sit on my rock and look out at the marsh, or if I'm seeing animals in nature, that just puts my vibration way up there. Another thing is just being around small children. You know, they're at this level where they can do anything. You know, they don't see limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin's son is being brought up in an environment where the word no is not heard all the time, like I heard as a child. So just seeing his creativity, his expansiveness, just again reiterates where we can grow to.
Excellent. Children and nature, so key. Thank you, Suzanne. And you had something to say.
I mean, it's similar to what several of you have said, is most mornings I start with meditation for 20 minutes or so, and then, you know, just some mindful prayer rituals. And then I write, you know, 10 goals or affirmations for the day, and they're pretty much the same. They may vary a bit depending on what sort of surfaces, but it just sort of sets that centering and a sense of calm for the day, no matter what the day is, you know, is already on the calendar with. And what's interesting is when I don't do that, it's just much more noticeable. I feel, you know, just more, I don't know, fragmented might be a word, or just a lack of ease about the day. And, you know, so it's, to me, it's just really beneficial and helpful. And it's not like I don't get distracted. But, you know, when you talked about having a discipline that we can stick to in a consistent way holds value. At least it does for me.
Absolutely, Dee. You made some excellent points, because if we look at the business in relation to what Dee just said, do you think when we are talking to people that really don't understand NECAN yet, but they may be interested, that if we're in that state of mind where we're relaxed and focused and calm, that we're going to have a more helpful conversation? Kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? And isn't it amazing how many times I speak for myself, I forget to do that.
And they were investments that advanced literally millions of dollars.
I think Dave wasn't muted and now he is. Okay. So all of this has a very, very direct correlation to being successful in anything, whether it's NECAN or, you know, you talk about children. I have grandchildren. If I'm not present with them, they know it. And they really pick up on that, and they don't like that. It breaks the connection. It breaks that heart connection that I want to have with them. And I find often that, you know, getting down on their level helps me to, you know, to connect with them. And that's what we do in the business. We look at the person we're with. We, you know, we want to connect with them. So we listen more than we talk. We're present. We're not looking out, oh, there's somebody else coming in the coffee shop or whatever. We maintain that focus. And what's the effect on them when we do that?
I think at least they feel valued and respected, even if they're not interested maybe in, you know, pursuing what we're pursuing. But it's just that sense of being listened to, because I don't think that's often the case that most people experience in their conversations, you know, often. You know, I think we've all been in small groups, whatever the setting is, where there are several people talking at once, and it seems like nobody's listening, you know, or everybody's trying to talk at once. So it really is a respectful thing.
And I believe it's a gift to not just that person, but I believe that changes their space when they really feel heard. And I have a belief that when they leave, one of us who is listening from that space, that they have a better day. that they feel valued and respected, like you said, Dee. And, you know, whether they join us in the business or not, we need to let that part go. I think our job is to be humans being more, and that means being present. That means not having an agenda that is people feel pressured from. So any other thoughts or ideas on that? Though, for those of you who just joined us, we're talking about the importance of the inner work in our business. And we've talked about meditation, we've talked about being in nature, we've talked about taking time in the morning to focus through meditation, prayer, affirmations, whatever, and being as conscious as we can about outside distractions that may take us out of that vibration that really attracts people.
I think too, as well, Maggie, following what Dee was saying, is so often people are distracted. Like you said, just people who are sitting in the coffee shop, watching people come in, whatever it might be, or looking at their phone. To get somebody just to fully engage one-on-one, it's almost hard for people. And if you're doing it and initiating it, it will be noticed, because it's more not the norm than the norm in society these days. You know, because it's everything's so fast paced.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, I think it's, like you say, being humans, being more with others. It just will be different. We are different that way. It's almost unrecognizable.
When my family comes for dinner, I'll say to them, you notice that there is no place on the place setting for a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it off, put it away. It's not allowed unless, you have an emergency potential. But yeah, I think if we model that, and our children see that, and our grandchildren see that, and our other, our consultants, our team sees that, that alone is making a difference.
Absolutely.
Connie, what about you? You're mute. There you go.
Yeah, I just got back from my grandson's basketball game, so that's why I jumped on a little bit late. I think it's, I agree that you really need to stay authentic to yourself when you go into, you're having an event or doing something like that. You really have to have a clear picture of what you want for them. What do you want to give them? Some just more knowledge about products. You can't go in with the the dollar signs in the eyes and say, I'm going to sell this amount, this amount, this amount. And that takes a little quiet thought, before you head into action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How about the Thorntons? You're sitting there smiling, and I'd like to hear from you. Sandra, Al? You're muted.
I'm kind of laughing because Al is always telling me, slow down. And I'm always saying, come on, join me. Well, no, I think I'll just go back here and think, or it's a good team. I told him, Lord put us together because I'm over here and he's back here. And I said, he wants me to come in towards the center. He wants you to get off the end and come towards the center. So we're on each other with that. And I was just smiling because we both could do some restructuring, and it's just good. It's refreshing to hear this.
Good. Carmen, how about you? Sorry, are you finished, Sandra?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Carmen? You're muted. Where'd you go? There you are.
There. Good reminders. I loved it when you said no cell phones, or just focusing in on the person, as was mentioned so many times. Mm-hmm. Just making that person feel like they're the most important person, and just that one-on-one contact is so valuable. And like was said, with no idea of dollar signs, just what can I help you with? Mm-hmm. What do you need? Yeah.
Two things, right? Being present and being in service.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Living Better Solutions. I don't know who you are. Do you want to weigh in?
Hattie Jane.
Oh, is that Hattie Jane?
Mm-hmm.
Ah. Oh, there you are. Now I can see your face. What do you say about this, Hattie Jane?
It's refocusing me again that's so important.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
And it's easier said than done, isn't it? We have truly been conditioned to be doers, not beers. You know, it's humans being more, not humans doing more. It's easy to do. I think also when I get into the doing, it's a way for me to avoid looking at my life, avoid looking at, you know, my goals and dreams. It's a distraction. So I like to be on point when I'm with people, and I can't do that unless I've taken that time to come present and connect to their heart.
Maggie, this just really brings up the point about, you've said humans being more several times. And I know that everyone on this call been to Humans Being More Silver training more than once, right? And there are some exercises that we've all gone through that have changed our lives, right? And there are things that we can bring into everyday life. And there's one that I remember, there's several that I remember, but one I remember a couple who in the dyad conversation, the first one that they had, one of them was in tears at the end because they had never experienced just the two of them having that focused conversation. You know, so for those of us who were on the kickoff call, or you heard, you know, that NECAN is now going to start sponsoring those again. I'm very excited about that because I know that that is really, it is a way for us to show the heart of NECAN to other people who have never experienced it. And it really differentiates us as a company that really believes in that personal development as such a huge part of what we all are.
Absolutely, Suzanne. I always say that Humans Being More is the best recruiting tool that we have. Because when people spend a day, or I like the 2-day one, but when they spend a day or two with us and they experience that love, you know, even the NECAN hug from the heart, things like that, and having, like that couple, having the opportunity to actually be in a conversation. I don't know how many families don't do that. They don't sit down. Many families don't sit at the dining room table and have dinner each night. I think that we have a moral responsibility to bring that sense of family and connection and presence back. So I think that's a major contribution that we make. Remember that the 5 pillars, there are 5. It's not just the finances. Family, society, mind, and body are part of that as well. And everything begins with the mind, with the thoughts that we plant in that energy field, not just the, you know, there's 2 kinds of thoughts. There's I don't know if you've read the book, The Untethered Soul, talks about the inner roommate. And the inner roommate is all of those messages, the subconscious mind messages. And we do this in Humans Being More. What are the messages that come through? Well, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's mostly about the don'ts, right? And that, the exercise in The Untethered Soul that I love so much, he says, how be you spend a morning with your subconscious mind, that inner roommate, going with you everywhere you go and talking out loud. It would be totally embarrassing, and you wouldn't want to have that person, you know, visible. But basically the subconscious, for those of us who've studied with Mike and with Bob Proctor, subconscious can run your life. It is literally a conditioned program that gets put in there pretty much before we're 8 years old. And the only way to change that is through some of the techniques that Joe Dispenza talks about, and how to break the habit of being yourself. I really encourage you to do some, you know, watching of YouTube videos of his, and perhaps buy the book. His newest one is called Becoming Supernatural, and that brings in all the science that he has applied to his program about the quantum physics side of it, and also the chemical side. Did you know that every emotion has a chemical signature? And when you feel an emotion, it dumps those chemicals into your system, and they become addictive. Now, if we can have the higher level, or the feelings that we want, and become addicted to those, I think that's way better than the addiction to shame, guilt, anger, fear, all those things that seem to be much more prominent in the world, right? And I never realized that the energy that is used to go through that pattern of I call it our favorite bad feeling, or favorite bad feelings, really takes away from our ability to free energy to create something new. So he talks a lot about how to break that habit of being yourself, because it's not our fault. That's how we've been conditioned. And there's lots of theories around that I won't go into. And I find that it does take that discipline that we've talked about throughout the call. It doesn't just happen because you think, oh, I'm going to stop doing that. No. Does that work for an addict of anything? No. An addiction takes discipline and changing your environment in order to break that addiction. Mike, we can see you now. Do you want to weigh in?
I just really couldn't listen too well when I was in the car, so I thought I'd hurry up home and then listen in. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to see your face. It was too dark in the car, right?
Well, I trying to drive and listen at the same time. Not a good combination.
Okay. It's hard to be present. You're right. Okay. Anybody else have a thought or a discipline that they are practicing or use to help get in that centered present state and tune into the feelings that we want to have, rule our life?
I have a spot. It's Hattie Jane.
Go ahead, Hattie Jane.
One is that many years ago in the processing, it was reported that Mr. Masuda was interested in how many were attending the Humans Being More, or what we called silver training at that time.
Yes.
That was his focus of how we were doing our growth.
That's right. He didn't ask about the numbers. He asked about how many people have been to silver training, as we called it. Then you're right. Good reminder.
More. Right.
Good
and
reminder.
The other factor is that Nikan, the use of our product line has been able to introduce to myself what an introduction to feeling, which as a nurse I track back to biofeedback, but in using some of the products in a certain way for a symptom or a problem I had, I became aware of a sensation of feeling very different, very much more balanced, very much more in control, much less irritable, much more open because of where I was using our magnetic product. So I feel that we also, besides looking into the disciplines of how to address quietening and meditation and doing, to also be aware of how our product line really is often a doorway into more.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just used to say to people, if you're studying for an exam, put we used to call it the super mini, the power chip, put it right here, tape it on there. It might look silly. Now we've got the little minis you can put on there. But for students or for anybody wanting to focus and do well on a performance of some kind, that really helps. So you're absolutely on the money there, Hattie Jane.
And as I love the things that are external, because then I can really own what I'm feeling and understand it better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I bring that up for folks.
Thank you, Hattie Jane. Lori Jones, you want to come into the conversation? She's disappeared.
Sure.
Oh, she's unmuted. There she is. Okay, where's your picture?
My picture? Okay, I'll put my picture up. There we go.
There we go. Great. Thank you.
Because the Red Sox won the World Series. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. I'm such a Red Sox fan.
I love it.
Yeah. So what did you want me to share about?
You know, we're just talking about the inner work that needs to be done to be successful, not just in NECAN, but in life and relationships. And do you have a personal discipline or something that helps you, you know, stay present? Gary's talking about breathing. Some of us talked about meditation. Some of us talked about, like your sister talked about, nature, being in nature and being around children.
Yeah, mine would definitely have to be prayer. I have a relationship with God, and that's a constant for me, and that's what keeps me disciplined. That's what keeps me focused, and that's what keeps me and I've done the ICANN. I don't know how many of you have done the ICANN program, but it is absolutely amazing. It is a game changer. It actually changes your brain. And so along with all of that, the focus is just, there's a positive, it's just positive being in prayer and having that relationship for me, and just having that joy. There's a difference between happiness and joy, and I have that joy. No matter what's going on, the compilation of all of that together, it's a win-win situation. And no matter on my worst day, I know that my Father loves me. And it's for me, for someone who had an absent dad, it was a good thing. So I would have that relationship. But that's really what keeps me positive. And yes, I do exercises in the morning. There's a routine that I have, especially that I'm a worker too. So this is not my full-time job yet. So, but I have a routine, and that's the first thing I do in the morning is to have prayer, and it sets the tone. I figure if Jesus did it, he stole away all the time early in the morning. I figured that might be a good indication that I need to do that. And I'll tell you, family, I mean, I could talk about my sister, who had faith and perseverance and prayer and a lot of patience. For 20 years, she shared NECAN with me. And my family sitting right here in the living room, and those that aren't here, that has made a huge difference. They have supported me 100%. And it's just been it is an inside work. Of course, I have lost 105 pounds using the NECAN products, and the Lord delivered me from food addiction. And all of it was inside. I never expected NECAN to be that. I always thought, okay, this is going to be a business, and I'm going to make money at this, and I'm going to affect people's lives. And I never thought it would be an inside thing. But literally, that's, I think, my favorite part about this whole journey with NECAN is the inside work that has been done and that still needs to be done in my life.
Yeah, it's like a shower, you know, you can't just do one once in your life and think you're done. Well, you could, but you wouldn't have many friends.
And, you know, and thank God that God only focuses on one little thing at a time, you know, and he changes us from glory to glory, you know. So he's still working on me. I'm not a finished product.
No, we're all a work in progress for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I went to school, I was conditioned to think that everything I wanted and needed, and et cetera, was out there somewhere, the external, right? And, you know, thanks to NECAN, I now know that it is an inside job, that the answers, the focus, all of the things that are precious in my life come from within. And I think that's another great gift that we give to the world, to help people change that habit of, you know, consumerism or whatever it is, thinking that the solution will come if you have a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger paycheck, whatever. It's really when you're in joy, as you said, none of that matters. I mean, it's nice stuff. It's nice to have, but it's not the central thing. It's really, you know, having the ego in service to spirit rather than the other way around.
Right. And that's NECAN, and the reason I wasn't.
Oh, you just muted yourself, Lori.
It was a distributor, a consultant. I just signed up another consultant. And I know this is going to change her life. It already has. She was praying about having a job, having her own business. And so I just know when you're helping somebody else, no matter what it is, that's really the best, you know. It's almost selfish because of the feelings you get from it, but I know it's just going to change her life. I think it already has, because she has hope, you know.
Yes.
So Suzanne always says that hope is one of those things that Niken has that we can give to others.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. And Marissa, you came on your picture there, and I'd like to hear from you. Do you want to come back on and unmute yourself and check in? There she is.
Sorry, I was driving as well, so my apologies. But
no problem.
I think for me, this is newer for my journey. So what I've been doing is really doing the journal entries, you know, working on my goals, and really trying to spend time to reflect. I think for me, it's been quite an amazing journey, because I've joined earlier this year, and I went into this, you know, for the business opportunity. And I've gotten so much out of it that it's really inspiring for me. I have 3 little young kids, and I'm sure this is not new to anybody, but if you have young kids, I'm actually sitting up out of my garage. But I couldn't miss the call. So thank you for all the inspiration.
Well, thank you for taking the time to be on with 3 young kids. That's commitment, and that's what it's about. Yeah. And the other thing that we've learned through, you know, the law of attraction, the law of assumption, whatever you want to call it, that whole thing about vibration that you started talking about earlier in the call, Suzanne, when we are in that place of gratitude, did you know that gratitude is the highest signature of receivership in the universe? And I know that if you have a faith, that there's so much about gratitude. And we've seen the experiments with water, with gratitude, thank you, and that sort of thing. And I think that once we tap into that, what we call an elevated emotion like gratitude, and we have a really clear intention in our mind about what we want to accomplish, you know, whether it's how many wellness homes you want to create, or how many people you want to help them change their lives, get mom home if that's a goal, whatever it is, but being in service and being in gratitude, that's how we attract things from the unified field or the quantum field or whatever you want to call it. So there's science behind meditation, there's science behind, you know, that whole law of attraction thing. And again, it comes back to, are you willing to do the little things every day that train you into that kind of energy? Because the hardest thing to do in the whole change process is to do something differently than we've done before. Because if you keep doing what you've done before, what are you going to get?
Same thing.
Same thing. So if we want something different, then we need to think differently. We need to feel differently. We need to be present. We need to breathe. Gary, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is, you know, in every meditation, we start with the breath. And when you breathe, I encourage you to breathe into the center of your chest, where your heart is, where your heart energy is. That makes a difference, because often we breathe from the head, right? And obviously the breath has to come in the nose and the mouth. But if we focus on breathing in the heart, then that's, you know, if you look at the energy centers, that's the middle energy center. It's easier to take the breath down to the first energy center and up to the 7th energy center when we breathe, you know, from the heart. So just a couple of things that might be helpful, and it's not that hard to do. Gary, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I remember Jim Starnes. He used to tell me all the time that ultimately you're not going to be judged by what you get. You're going to be judged by what you give.
I love it.
And I think if you every day, instead of waking up and thinking, well, what can I get for myself today? You wake up and you say, well, what can I give to somebody today? That, you know, your cup will never run out, because as long as you're giving, you know, divine intervention is going to take place, and your cup's going to stay full.
And the best place to start is exactly where you said, Gary. When you wake up in the morning, instead of doing what you usually do, you know, checking your phone or whatever, getting out of bed, going to the bathroom, just take a couple of minutes to breathe and ask yourself the question, what would my best self do today? What is the greatness I can be today? And that sets the tone for a day that could be the start of something absolutely magnificent.
Maggie, can I share 2 of my affirmations from my box?
Please do. This will be good for, we're getting close to the end of the call, so that's great.
So here's one. The most important words you'll ever hear are in your own voice. Good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point of, I read this one, and I have a version that I read at night before I go to bed. The morning one says, think of the possibilities that today can bring. Think of the wonderful things that come from change. What if you'll be the amazing person someone else meets? Thank you, God, for today. Thank you for the possibilities. Thank you for changes. Thank you for the wondering of what if.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Any final comments from other people? I love those, both of them. Thank you, Suzanne.
It's speaking to the what if. You know, what if we don't share Niken with other people?
Good
What
point.
what if we had the fear that moment and didn't share it, and that person really needed to hear it, or was ready to start their own business, or really might have been smiling but was in agony in their body and really needed Niken? What if we didn't share? So put it positively, what if we shared and forgot about the fear and forgot about everything else that holds us back and just do it?
Yeah, get over yourself.
Because we may be the only skin on Niken that anyone's going to ever see. You know, with the what did they say? 1% of North America has heard about Niken. 2 people in 2 years I have talked with that has heard about Niken, of all the people. And I already exhausted my hundreds list, and I'm moving on to the next 100.
Yeah.
So, you know, what if we share when we're supposed to and when we need to, and change somebody's life?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I believe we have a moral responsibility to share without expectation. We can't, you know, control, or do we want to control how other people receive this gift? And it still comes down to, we need to speak up after we've listened. Okay, let's end the call here then, unless somebody has a final comment or question. Thank you all so much